Today, we're going to be talking about privacy and data collection in major technology companies, which is kind of a really important topic that sometimes we may not necessarily think about in detail. So I think today's session is going to be super helpful. Just to begin with a little overview of what we're going to be covering, we're going to talk about types of data that major technology companies can collect and do collect from their users, how they actually collect this data and what it's used for. And then we're going to go into specific companies, including Facebook, Instagram, Google, and Twitter policies for sharing your personal information with third parties, and also the privacy protections that are in place to keep all of your information safe. So to begin with the types of data that companies are collecting. First off, there is personal information, and this includes information including your name, email, phone number, birth date, gender, etc., kind of information that's about you personally. And in addition to personal information, there's also location data. And not all applications are going to be using this, but many do collect location data to provide location-based services. For example, directions, recommendations that are nearby to you, weather updates, and also things, if you think about delivery for food or other kind of services like that, like Uber, it's going to need to know exactly where you are in order to complete the service. Furthermore, there's also something called browsing history, and some companies collect data that's from websites that users are visiting, including the searches that they are performing and the content that they interact with, so they can kind of see what you're interested in based on what you're searching up on the internet. And there's also device information that some companies collect, and this is information on a device that a user is using. And this includes the type of device, the operating system, and hardware specifications. So this is kind of a less personal aspect of information being collected, and it's more about the technology that you're using. There's also something called usage data that can be collected, which is how users interact with products from a certain company, such as how often they're using them, how long of periods of time they're actually spending on them, and what features they're using. So really seeing what you're doing as a user and the activities that you're taking part in. And there's also social media activity, and many companies collect data regarding a user's social media activity, such as posts, comments, likes, sometimes tags, or kind of the amount that you're using the application as well. Next, there's also payment information that some companies collect, and these are companies that offer payment services or are actually selling products online that require you to put in your payment information, for example, a credit card number or a billing address, in order for you to actually pay for a good or service. Another type of data is biometric information, and some companies collect this data, for example, facial recognition or fingerprints, to enhance the security or kind of help user experience as well with whatever service they're offering. Now, we know what types of data companies are collecting, but how do they actually access and record this information? First off, we have cookies, and this is something we've talked about in the past, but it can definitely be a bit of a confusing topic. So just to review, websites and applications can use cookies, which will then allow them to collect information about a user's browsing habits. For example, the websites that they visit and the things that they're viewing. And it's also helpful because it's used to personalize content and advertising as well. So it's a way for websites to kind of get to know you as a user. Now, there's also user input, which is the voluntary input of personal information when you're creating an account. or even making a purchase, filling out a form, etc. So it's whatever you're giving them. And then they also can track pixels. So companies can embed tracking pixels in emails or even on websites, which then help them to collect information about user behavior. For example, whether an email was opened or a link was clicked. Now, there's also GPS as well as other sensors. So mobile devices sometimes use GPS and other sensors to collect data pertaining to your location, which can then be used to provide location-based services. And there's also the ability for companies to collect social media activity. So they can collect data on our users' social media activity by analyzing public posts, also looking into likes and comments as well. Now, there's also something called data brokers, where some companies purchase data from third-party data brokers, which do collect data from a variety of sources, for example, public records and surveys. So this is kind of another way to outsource information. And there's also machine learning algorithms, where some companies use machine learning to analyze user behavior, and then from there, they can make predictions about interests and preferences of users. So that's more of an estimation or prediction. Now, with all of this information and data being collected, there must be policies in place, which we're now going to go over, which pertain to sharing data with third parties. We're also going to touch upon some similarities and differences. So to begin, we're going to be talking about Facebook and Instagram policies for sharing data. And they're both companies that use third-party partners in certain circumstances. For example, when the user has given consent, or if it's necessary for a particular service or feature included in Facebook or Instagram. They also do use user data to personalize ads and content, and then the information is shared with advertisers for this purpose. Now, in terms of Google, their company collects data from a wider range of services and products in comparison to other companies. For example, it looks into data including search history, location data, and usage data from Google Maps and YouTube. So they're kind of taking from more types of data and collecting a wider range. Now for Twitter, it has a policy which is more focused on sharing data with third-party partners for analytics and also measurement purposes. So it's less about personalized advertising, but more about providing your information to third parties. So all of these social media platforms are similar in that they have policies in place, but the goals and purposes of the policies do differ. And now we're going to finally go over some privacy protections. So Facebook and Instagram do offer a wide range of privacy settings to help users to control what information they share and stay safe online. So this includes managing who can see their posts and who can contact them. Also, it's important to note that users can report and block others who violate their privacy or harass them. So that's another feature that's in place to protect users. In terms of Instagram specifically, they use encryption to protect user data, and also they have policies in place to prevent unauthorized access or disclosure of user data. Now for Google, Google allows users to control what information is collected pertaining to their identity and their kind of who they are as a user, and they can do this through privacy settings. They do also use encryption to protect user data in transit and while it's kind of just resting and it's not going anywhere. And Google also has policies in place to protect user data from unauthorized access or disclosure. Now, for Twitter, they offer privacy settings that allow users to control and personalize what information is shared, as well as who can who can see their tweets. Twitter does also use encryption similar to other social media platforms in order to protect user data, and their policies are in place to prevent unauthorized access or disclosure of personal data. Now, to end off, we've included some links on this slide for you for some resources to explore more about the topic, and we can send these in the chat for you, or you can also access them once you receive a copy of the presentation as well. So that does conclude our presentation for today. Thank you very much for listening. If you would like to learn this lesson with a Cyber Seniors mentor, please go to the website or call our phone number to register for a one-on-one phone session. And we do also host weekly tech drop-in sessions from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursdays, where everyone is more than welcome to join.